Instead of arguing with them, learn what they need, learn what they want. And as long as they're not asking you to do something immoral, unethical, or illegal, right, then you got to make a business decision. Is it financial for you?
Originating from deep inside the Rocky Mountains, transported through the power of the internet, and arriving inside your tiny earbuds. It's the Appraiser Coach Podcast.
Minisode.
Recently, I received a letter in the mail from a new AMC, or at least new to me, I hadn't heard of them before, asking me to join their panel. And normally I would be open to any new clients, right? But I wasn't with this one. I'll tell you why in just a minute. I want to pause here and remind you we're sponsored by ANOW Software. Speaking of clients and keeping track of your clients, ANOW is the system that you need to do so. Check them out. Go to anow.com/coach. Again, it's anow.com/coach. All right, folks, so I'm pretty open when it comes to new clients. I would think that maybe some of my listeners would say I'm a little too open. I know that some of you are very, very careful about who you bring on, and I am as well, but I go about it a little bit differently than some of you do. I know that when a new client comes to your attention, or maybe it's not a new client in general, but a new client to you. Somebody approaches you, says, hey, Jane Smith, appraiser in Illinois, want to do business with you. We're looking for appraisers in your area. We only work with the best appraisers. Come join our team. And most of you would maybe jump on social media. You'd do a little research. You'd find out, hey, is this company worth looking into? Years ago, there was a company out there that kind of gave a scorecard, if you will, to AMCs, and that has gone bye-bye. By the way, I would love for another individual out there. It's not for me. Don't point the finger back at me, but I'd love for another individual to open up another company like that. I think it's a super cool idea. But anyway, many of you would do some research, do some homework, and I don't necessarily not do that, by the way. But I've learned over the years to not necessarily just take that at face value. For example, I work for a couple of companies and have done for many years that many of you would put in the Y category. And remember, I've got a 3-tier system when it comes to clients. You're either an A client, a B client, or a Y client. Okay, an A client, very simple, straightforward. They're worth working for. B client is kind of worth working for, but they definitely have some issues. A Y client stands for why the hell am I working for you? I'm going to fire you. I'm moving on. And there is no C client, there's no D client, there's no E client, and on down the road. You're either an A client, you're a B client, which means I'm constantly on the lookout. I got the Fockers eye on you, if you will. I said Fockers. Okay. What did he say? Shouldn't this have an explicit warning on it? I've got my eye on you if you're a B client, right? You're in constant peril with me. And once you slip over the line to a Y client, so long, see ya, I'm on to something else. But I work for a couple of clients out there that many of you would require or would put in the category, rather, of a Y client, or at least a B minus client. And I would put them more in a B plus, maybe even A minus category. And the point is what, when they say that one man's trash is another person's treasure, I'd say that's very similar to my experience with AMCs, that some of you have really, really difficult problems with some AMCs that I work very well with. And I think that comes from a variety of different reasons. Number one, I work a different area than a lot of you work. Many of you are suburban or even urban, and I am not. The biggest town that I work in, I think, is 65,000 people. And that's the big metropolis, right? And so a lot of times I can work with clients in these rural areas that many of you can't. In other words, there might be ABC, AMC out there that pays $250 for an appraisal in Southern California and might pay me $450 to $500 in Idaho, because you get what you get, right? And so in many cases, I see on social media, someone will post and say, hey, what do you think of this AMC? Should I be working for this AMC? And, just watch out, because appraisers will pile on with all of their complaints about such and such AMC. And sometimes I have to think and go, I work for that AMC and I don't have those problems. My point is not to not do your research. My point is do your research with a grain of salt. And you may just want to try out an AMC and just, find out if it works for you. And I will tell you this. There are many cases when I have seen some negative comments regarding a certain AMC, and I am not unwilling to try them myself. Now, sometimes I have the same experience, right? And especially if it's all negative, I might say, okay, well, maybe there's something here. But typically, it might be 10 people that log in and say something about the AMC, and 2 of them have had a pretty good experience with them. And, it turns out that I might have a pretty good experience as well. I started to tell you why that might be the case. And, one of the reasons I gave you was the fact that I work a rural area, which gives me a little bit more power and flexibility over what I will do and what I won't do. And sometimes the AMCs kind of just have to suck it up. In other words, they don't have the roster that they might have in a Southern California, where they can be a little bit more circumspect as to who they use as an appraiser. But the other side of that is also, something to look at as well. And that is, I sometimes learn the patterns of certain AMCs. I can think of 2 off the top of my head that are very big AMCs that I work for, and a lot of appraisers have real issues with them because, hey, they require too much, they ask too much, they want it in a specific format, they always want this statement in the appraisal, and I'm just unwilling to do that. And that's fine, to each their own. I would certainly never disparage you from making that type of a business decision. But for me, these 2 particular AMCs that I'm thinking of, we do a lot of work for, and they pay us quite well, and it doesn't really bother me. Yes, they also ask for the same stuff with me, right? But the reason it doesn't bother me is I've learned over the years what they need. I've learned what they want, and I've learned to give it to them up front. So I don't get a lot of revision requests from these AMCs saying, hey, why didn't you take a picture of the water heater? Well, because I don't already take a picture of the water heater, right? Instead of arguing with them, learn what they need, learn what they want. And as long as they're not asking you to do something immoral, unethical, or illegal, right, then you got to make a business decision. Is it financial for you? In other words, is it financially beneficial for you to do so? Is it going to take that much more time out of my day to take a picture of the water heater? And if they want it every single time, well, am I willing to do that for the fee that they're giving me? Again, this is a business decision that you, the appraiser, the business owner, have to make. Okay. But I received a letter in the mail just a couple of weeks ago asking me to join a panel. And before I jumped on board, as I normally would, I would direct my office and say, in fact, it's kind of a given. Hey, if this is a new AMC and there's not a lot of negative out there about it, let's give it a shot. It doesn't cost me much to go through the process of signing up with these companies. And I know some of you are saying, well, Dustin, they have like a 6-page thing you got to fill out and blah, 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 blah. Well, guess what, folks? That's why I use the law of delegation, right? I'm not going to personally fill out that 6-page application. I might sign it. I might check it over to make sure it's right, okay? But it's not me doing it. I'm paying someone else to do it. And for me, it's worth the gamble. It's worth the time spent, the money spent, rather, to pay the individual that spends their time to do that for me. And I'm going to give it a shot. We're going to try it. And we're going to check it out. And we're going to see if it works for us. And even if others are having negative experience with them, if we find that we're getting paid on time and we're getting paid well and we're given enough time to do the product well and they don't ask the moon, right? I'm going to give it a shot and I'm going to see if it works for me. I've been criticized for having too many AMC clients. Okay, fine, whatever. I've learned to work in the system, and I've learned a business model that works well for me, okay? But in this particular situation, when I opened up the letter, and I think I got through about 3 lines, and I crumpled it up and threw it away. I'll tell you why in just a minute. I want to remind you we are sponsored by ANow Software. One of the things that ANow will do, and I don't talk about this aspect of ANow very often. I often talk about, order management, making sure that the appraisal starts at A and ends at Z, and ANow helps you get through that process. It also helps you with analyzing the business component of your appraisal firm, right? How well are you doing? What aspects are you doing well in, and what aspects do you need to work on? It helps you with all of that. The third thing it helps you with, and not the final thing, but the third thing it helps you with is client organization. There is a tab in ANow with all your clients. And by the way, it automatically puts them in as you fill them out. So if you work for ABC, AMC, and then 2 weeks later you do another job for ABC, AMC, you don't have to fill it out again. You just simply start typing in A, B, and it pops up and you click it and you move on. It's awesome to keep track of your orders, keep track of your invoices, keep track of unpaids. Okay, does that sound appealing? Check them out. Go to anow.com/coach. Again, it's anow.com/coach. Welcome back to the program. Dustin Harris hanging out with you in the podcast chair. We're talking about clients today, and we're specifically talking about a client that sent me a letter. It was not an email, which typically these things are sent via email. This was actually a physical letter. I opened it up, I started reading, quickly crumpled it up and threw it in the round file cabinet. Why? Why am I not willing to give this one a particular shot, where I'm pretty willing to give almost any AMC a shot? Now, by the way, you don't have endless shots, right? It's kind of a strike three system with me, okay? I'm going to use you, and if you're going to ask too much, well, maybe that's strike one. If you're not going to pay on time, maybe that's strike two. If you're not quite the fee that I want, maybe that's strike three, and strike three, you're a Y client, you're out. In this case, I did not even allow them to get up to bat. Why? Well, when I started reading through the potential engagement letter, and I don't mean engagement letter as far as appraisals go, I mean engagement between them as an employer and me as an employee or a contractor, I read that they wanted a startup fee. They wanted me to open up my wallet and pay them, and it wasn't much, by the way. They wanted me to pay them a certain amount of money in order to have the privilege of working with them. Now, folks, maybe my standards are low. maybe my principles are lower than yours are, but I do have a floor. I do have an area that I will not stoop, and that is one of them. I am not going to open up my wallet and pay you for the opportunity to work for your company. Well, why is that? Some of you would say, well, Dustin, aren't you all about business opportunities, right? And aren't you all about business decisions? And isn't that simply an investment? And by the way, I see that aspect, right? For example, let's go away from the lender world for just a second, just as a hypothetical. If you want to gain a client, say as an attorney client, okay? Maybe you know of an attorney out there that does a lot of bankruptcy work, and you go to that attorney and you woo them, if you will, into hiring you. That is going to cost you time. That is going to cost you money. It just is. My experience has been I've never received, other than just spontaneous, they found me and they reached out to me, but I have never gained an attorney client without spending some time and some money. Typically, I do what's called a lawyer lunch, where I get together with 4 or 5 different attorneys and I buy them lunch, right? And I talk to them about why they should have an appraisal and why that appraiser should be me. Now, that's going to cost me some money. It's going to cost me some time. It's going to cost me some effort, but it pays off. From a business perspective, that is a good investment for me. And I know some of you would say, well, Dustin, how is this any different? You are paying for the opportunity to do business. And it may not be much. I will say this, it was less than $100, right? Is that worth the risk? Maybe if it was purely from an aspect of dollars and cents, and you're weighing out, okay, if I pay this, let's call it hypothetically $50 to be able to be on your list, will that mean that I'm going to get, 4, 5, 10, 15, 20 appraisals? And thus that sign-up fee is quickly enveloped and it makes it worth my time. Frankly, you could even take that one step further and say, I know my appraisers well enough to know that they probably have the same attitude that I have, and they're not going to sign up for this company because they're asking for a sign-up fee, and therefore my chances are even better, right? When you put in for a free raffle at the local farmer's market, okay, your chances of being drawn out are much less unless it is a cost or a fee raffle, meaning you got to pay a certain amount of money to be in there. Why? Because most people are not willing to do that. And thus the number of tickets is going to be lower, and thus your chances are higher. Dustin, isn't this kind of similar, right? If you pay the $50 and get on this panel, there's a chance that your competitors are not going to pay that $50, and thus you're going to get all the work in your area. And that may very well be true. But I'll tell you, folks, be careful. There's two things that I would ask you to think about here. Number one of them is the principle behind this, okay? In other words, I'm not paying this money as a marketing situation. I'm paying this money because they asked me to for the quote-unquote privilege of doing work for them. For some reason, and I don't know that I can totally put my hand on it, that just rubs me the wrong way. That's number one. Number two, I know for a fact, and I'm not going to share names here, but I know for a fact that there have been companies out there in the past that were not legitimate AMCs that targeted appraisers. And they went after appraisers. By the way, folks, your names, your addresses, they're out there. It's not hard to find, okay? You simply have to Google, and you can find appraisers' names and addresses. And I know for a fact that sham companies have been set up to go out and woo appraisers into being their client. And for a $150 sign-up fee, we'll send you all the work in your area. Well, guess what? You pay the $150 and you never get one order because they were never a legitimate AMC to begin with. For those two reasons, I crumpled up the paper and I threw it in the garbage. Now, if you want to take a different look at this, if you want to take a different route than I have taken, I'm never going to stand in the way of that. That's a business decision. I'm simply giving you my opinion. When an AMC asks for a sign-up fee, when they ask you to give them money for the privilege of doing business with them, I turn tail and run. You should turn tail and run directly to my website and check out the All-Star team. Folks, for $49 a month, okay? The other day I had a new appraiser, a new member of the All-Star team email me, and he said, and I'm paraphrasing, but he said, Dustin, am I reading this right? For $49 a month, I get access to all of this? Folks, if you want to know what all of this means, I want you to go to my website, I want you to click on the products, and I want you to scroll, okay? There's about 3 things, maybe 4 things on that website that are not free, but they are offered at a discount for the All-Star team. Every other thing that you see on that website, and we're talking a lot of things, dozens and dozens of webinars on very specific things that will help you to be a better appraiser and a better business owner, are found in the All-Star team. Hope you'll join us. Thanks for joining me today. We'll catch you next time.
You've been listening to the Appraiser Coach podcast with Dustin Harris. If you like what you hear, please give us a 5-star rating and post a short review on iTunes. For more in-depth insider information on how you can make more money as a real estate appraiser, visit theappraisercoach.com and sign up for the All-Star team today. Thanks for joining us. And now, get out there and create some value.
Hey everybody, a little post-production work. When I first recorded this episode, I was careful not to use a name because frankly, I didn't know much about the company, if anything. I had received a letter, maybe they were legit, maybe they weren't. The purpose of the episode was more about a principle than it was about a specific company. But in the meantime, we've not yet published this episode, getting ready to do so now. There's been a little bit of movement on this, and I feel free because it's out there in the public realm, if you will. Specifically, Appraisers blog posted a blog post about this. I feel comfortable sharing the name of the company and a little bit of details. So Appraisers blog on January 13th, 2020 posted a little bit about this company. It says many appraisers have gotten invitation letters in the mail from Spot Value to join their panel. The letter states that the appraiser was recommended by one of their clients and that their panel is by invitation only. Okay. In other words, a whole bunch of appraisers got that very thing. Okay. They have a website which makes them look legit. Their address is such and such, Irvine, California. Blah, 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 blah. Michael Miller is listed as the CEO. We were unable to reach Michael Miller, but they did give a little information that was found on the web. Again, this is public information. There is a Michael Miller, 37, from Irvine, California, was sentenced to 52 months of imprisonment. Basically, this was mortgage fraud, mortgage scheme, if you will. Housing Wire posted a little bit about that as well. Again, I don't know that this is the same individual, but the company that sent me the letter was Spot Value, and they were asking for a $39 application fee. They are not listed as an AMC in the state of California, it says, according to Appraiser's blog. Anyway, the point being, I was a little bit aloof in the episode about who we were talking about because I don't want to throw somebody under the bus that might be legit. And frankly, if you want to go pay someone for the opportunity to play in their sandbox, that's a business decision that you need to make. It's just not one that I personally would make. And that was the point of the episode. But follow up, it looks like my spidey senses were right on this one. And this is a company definitely to be avoided. All right, folks, thanks for joining me, and we'll catch you next time.